birthplace of Lord Buddha, but also he came to this site, which was completely overgrown with forest. And when he was recording, and he also recorded the presence of a white tiger living on the site as well. So he was very frightened, but he continued to do the survey. From that time, he decided that the archaeology you could see on the surface was very similar to that described by the Chinese pilgrims Fasen and Wanzhang. And they describe a ruined city lived in by groups of Sangaramas. So he recorded the presence of a series of viharas on the ancient palace area. So after his time, very little work was done until 1970s, and some Nepali archaeologists started to dig deep, and they then began to find evidence of early occupation. As Venerable Vice Chairman has said, about 10 years ago there was a new fund, a fund to actually investigate, and we thought that we ought to investigate but use science, because the challenge is, how do you understand a city without having to excavate everything? So the most important element has been the scientific exploration. And I have a few slides that I will try to show. Yes, of course. Yes.
And also to give you an idea, all our family, under the Venerable Bhikshuni, is the master, and she's the head of the whole family. There are millions of volunteers. So this is our core volunteer team here from Singapore and Malaysia. And we're looking after, we're working together for the community development projects around the
Wonderful.
We are exploring about in future what's doing Kapilvastu and Ramazana area. So these are our volunteer teams.
That is very, very important, because the voluntary work, one of the challenges, how to deliver benefit for people living here. Now this part is the new entrance. The old entrance used to be there, which meant you weren't aware you were visiting a city. This is the ancient moat. So then you come across the moat and you come into one of the gates of the city. So you're now coming into the western gate of the city. Western gate of the city. So this is the first plan of the site. So this was prepared in 1899, and you can see this is the orientation. It was identified to be rectangular, about 450 metres by 350 metres, and it was noted that there were stupas at the four corners. Now, P.C. Mukherjee was wondering whether these were associated with the sites. The sick man, the ill man, also the renunciant, so associated with the sites. So he also, in one building, put Palace of Buddha's Father ? So already 100 years ago he was thinking, and he wrote most probably the site of ancient Kapilvastu. Now this is 10 years ago, and this is what the site looked like. All of this area. So it was very difficult for pilgrims and visitors to understand what was here. And at that time we were recording, and most visitors spent about 30 minutes. They came here, went straight and left. The amount of money they spent was nothing. So for the local community there was nothing. Also at that time, no museum, no place to buy handicrafts. So for a visitor, for a pilgrim, it was a very poor experience, and also for the local economy, almost nothing. So what we did was we did geophysical survey. Now within the city you have brick walls. Without excavating, you can record the Earth's magnetic field, because a brick is highly magnetic. Clay has less magnetism. So every part of the city we have surveyed. Now this is the survey, and if you look very carefully you can see black lines, Can you see black lines?
Yes, yes, yes.
Black lines are brick walls.
The brick wall.
And it's because they're high magnetism. Now, can you also see some white lines?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, these are streets.
The streets.
So what you have in front of you is the complete plan of the ancient city. This is the interpretation. So blue are the streets, and you can see the city is completely designed in a very, very clear fashion. And at the central crossroads, you have a huge brick wall, which is the palatial compound. So at the crossroads of the city, you have the palatial compound. Now, I always say a very horrible story, that archaeology is like gambling. At the beginning of season, you take your money, you take the resources you have, you say, I will excavate here.
Yeah.
You hope maybe you will find something, sometimes you find nothing. This has allowed us to select individual buildings to actually excavate. So it means we know what sort of building we are going to be excavating, how much time it will take to do. It also means that we can begin to target different parts of the city. So this wall is a late wall of Emperor Kanishka, so the Kushan ruler, so maybe about 1st, 2nd century CE. Underneath it is an earlier mud rampart. So underneath is a huge mud rampart, because what we have is a series of brick wall, mud wall, and the first city, so the city at the time of the life of the Buddha, it's timber. This is the earliest timber wall. So underneath here, 3 meters down, the city is all in timber. Later, it's reproduced in brick again and again. But this is the first city wall. So when we think of the life of the Buddha, we tend to think of palaces like Rajasthan, everything marble, sandstone. But actually, at the time of the life of the Buddha, everything is timber, mud, and also thatch. But this site remains very important. And so what is interesting is two things. Firstly, this is the ancient planning treatise called the Arthasastra, and it informs how to plan a city. Here we have the plan actually of this ancient treatise. And also, if we look at the descriptions of the Chinese pilgrims, they describe a ruined city wall. They then describe the palace at the center of the city. They then describe the stupas at the different sites. When you look around you, you can see the ancient city wall. You can see palatial compound. So it's really interesting. The Chinese pilgrim descriptions are almost exactly the same in front of us.
Amazing.
These walkways are designed to protect the site from larger numbers of pilgrims, because the archaeology is 20 centimetres below the surface. So these were designed to not be dug into the ground, but also to keep pilgrims walking above the ground so the damage is not there. And this side of the path has not been excavated. So there are porcupine, there are jackals, there are also jungle cats. So this is natural, and this is the ancient city. All of these walkways present. Other areas we can actually leave for the future. Technology will improve, archaeological techniques will improve, and also in this area of agriculture, this is one of the few places for birds and animals. So it's very natural. So it's very natural.
You were mentioned just now, before this there's another civilization. How far is it there, civilization?
Yes, so what we have is, in about 1300 BC, this whole area has a series of very small villages.
1300 BC.
So even at Lumbini, about 200 meters away from Mayadevi Temple, there is an ancient village mound. And that village mound was lived in 1300 BC. So before the birth of the Buddha, this was a populated landscape with villages, with people living there. We know what sort of animals they ate. We know what sort of fish they caught. And there are people living there. But in about 600 BC, suddenly we get cities. Now this is a beautiful house. I should have asked how long you have. Should we have a look at this lovely house? So this is an ordinary type of house. Now you have to imagine here is a road. So this is one of the roads. There is another road here. So the house faces two sides onto a road. This is a little courtyard. So there would have been a little timber fence here. The road, the timber fence, this is the courtyard. These are verandas. So you see this long room? This actually is veranda. And you have rooms behind. And here is another veranda. So when you think about what the houses are like, this gives you a really interesting idea because foundations are brick. You can see where there are holes cut for timber. So this would be open veranda. The walls of the house rooms are mud. And then the roof is thatch. Now it means in winter these are warm houses because mud actually keeps warmth in. In summer it's also very, very cool because the mud insulates. So it's a beautifully adapted house, and it's very similar if you go to visit some of the indigenous Taru. Some of their houses are very, very similar. Beautifully cool in summer, but also warm in winter. So that gives you an idea. You do a physical survey, and then we decided, let's investigate this building and investigate this building. So this road, you can see the wooden walkway, is the major road of the city. And it links to the eastern gate. So this is a very, very important road. Here is one of the entrances. The city has many entrances. So when we think of a city, we have to think there may be each one of these roads comes to an entrance to the city. So the city has many gates. This gate brings people into an open square. So this is open. The road is here. This has no buildings. This is open. This side, we have a series of small rooms. We think perhaps they might be shops. So individual little rooms within the square. And then they also have courtyards. So this is an open courtyard behind. And then this building was very puzzling because it's a big building. It also had roof tiles. So most houses just have thatch. If you have something with roof tile, it means it's very significant. So when we excavated in here, we found lots of oil lamps, and also at that end, we found two very large iron crucibles, iron ingots. So one of the things we know about the city, it's a very important place for making iron. We have a huge industrial area outside the city, just to the south. It's outside the city because when you're making iron, you have lots of flames, you have lots of heat, lots of sparks. Inside the city, if all your houses have thatch roofs, there's a real danger of fire. So the metal working is outside. So this building we interpret as a shrine because it's special. It has a tile roof.
How do we know that this house is a tile roof and then that is?
Because when we excavate, we found lots of roof tiles. So the roof would collapse. No, it's a very good question. When we excavated here, we found no roof tiles. Also, what is really interesting is the walls are mud, but the roof is tile. Inside the palatial compound, the walls are brick and high. So we have different people living in different parts of the city, living in very different ways. Associated with the life of the Buddha. Now, within the geophysics, we picked up a huge square just here. Now this is very exciting because if you look at the land, it dips.
Yeah.
Dips down.
Yeah. It looks like previously they had water underneath it.
That's right. So when we were doing the geophysics, we found a very, very thick magnetic reading in a square, measuring about 30 metres by 30 metres. When we excavated it, we found it's a tank, a pond. And it's a pond with a brick wall. Now, what is exciting is this is where it is. So it's built into the city plan. And you don't often find these, so this is really rare. The date is the date of the Emperor Asoka, so 3rd century BC. So it's the earliest example we have of civic infrastructure. So they are collecting water, and we had 28 courses of brick, huge bricks. So currently colleagues from Lumbini Development Trust and Department of Archaeology are going to start cleaning it, so then when visitors come they can see some of the houses but also some of the massive structures, because if you think to build a monument like this, that large, 30 metres by 30 metres, the walls are 2 metres high, this is a massive investment of brick, of labour, and it also demonstrates that people are aware of the importance of water. So it's, when you imagine, when you come back in the future, 10 years time, you will see this beautiful pond. And also, what we find interesting is there are links between town planning in Kathmandu and here. In Kathmandu, it's very important for urban sites brick-lined ponds, and here we have one here. No, maybe. Often the rope slips, so in here we found lots of full vessels, so many people were clearly losing. Now this building is a building that was excavated by Department of Archaeology and also a Japanese Buddhist university, Rishon University. DC Mukherjee said this is Palace of Buddha's Father ? So many Japanese groups come here and venerate. Now, there are 2 points to make. One, it's built in brick, it's near the surface, therefore it does not date to the time of the Buddha, because at the time of the Buddha there was no brick. Secondly, people thought this was the palace. Now, we know the palace is in this area. So if you look, the land rises up, and actually in the geophysics, that's where we found this wall surrounding it. So we're here, but now we know actually this is the palace area here. A very, very distinctive. Before visiting the palace area, we'll go to Saimai Mai, because one of the challenges is that many of the pilgrims who come are Buddhist. But for local people, they have been worshipping here at this small shrine called Saimai. So the challenge is how to protect the site, present the site, but at the same time ensuring that local people can still visit and can still worship, because they've been doing this for hundreds of years. And in a way they have been protecting the site, and therefore we should respect that, and see how we can balance both pilgrimage but also improvement for local people, which is a very difficult challenge.
Actually, how deep is the city sunk under?
It's about 3.5 to 4 meters. So beneath your feet, 3.5 to 4 meters. We also, the city is here because there is a river. So the old river is just flowing over there. And the city, if you look, has lost its northeast corner because the river has flooded. So the river benefits by being next to the city, but also it's a threat. And in the early levels, the city is often flooded.
Flooded. Especially during the rainy season.
Yes, certainly. Also, I should apologise. I'm very dirty today because
No,
we've been
it
excavating.
shows that you're working.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this is the place that they do the worshipping.
So this is where they worship locally, and the little shrine has no roof. Wants to be roofed. She wants to be open to the sky.
Okay, I've been to here, but I was not aware that they so good.
Yes. So a year ago, we worked on the on doing restoration on the shrine. So this is a shrine to the goddess Sai. So local people will come if they have a question, a wish. They will make a request of the goddess. If the wish is granted, they will give an elephant. Now, under the ground here, there are hundreds and hundreds of terracotta elephants. So this practice is one that's been going on for many, many years. Unfortunately now, many people offer concrete elephants, which is a bit sad because the concrete does not degrade. The terracotta elephants do. Now, the temple actually is built on top of a medieval temple. So what you see here is a temple that was probably built in the 18th century, but actually it's using bricks from a huge medieval temple under the ground. And from that temple we have recovered busts of Lord Vishnu. So actually this temple is one of the last buildings, the medieval temple, to have been constructed at the site. So at some point the shrine then later is built on top of a Vishnu temple. So this is one of the really interesting changes that we have from Buddhism into other forms of traditions. There is a new tradition that has grown over the last few years that now many pilgrims are told that Maya Devi came and worshipped here and was rewarded with a son. So many pilgrims are now very excited by coming here. But in a way, it's many traditions see this place as sacred. It is on top of a medieval temple. That medieval temple is on top of earlier structures. So there is a continuity of sacredness at this point.
This medieval temple is before Buddha.
No. The medieval temple is probably about 1100 AD. So it's 1,600 years after Buddha's time. Yes. But these are the people who are the custodians, and for them, for the festivals, this place is so important. So that's why when thinking about how to equip the site for pilgrims, we must also respect that actually this is so important for local people as well. This is part of the intangible, and when pilgrims are not here, they are here worshipping, practicing, so they are very, very core to the intangible, which is also why last year we did some stabilisation of the monument, because there was a worry that you can see there's a tree growing in it. So if we have a look now at the side. Yeah. So you can see the trees holding it together. And also, if you look, you can see carved bricks. So these are part of the medieval temple. And also, some of those carved bricks. Have you been to the site of Kodan? No. Kodan is close, the other side of Kuningham. And there are a series of big temples with this carved brick. So they've dug holes in the ground, taken the brick out and built this. And as you can see, it has no roof. And there's a local tradition that every time someone tries to build a roof, it will collapse because the goddess wants to be open to the sky. So it's a beautiful shrine and still living tradition, which is important.
So the carving is there any meaning of the
Of the carving, no, it's decorative. Some of it is decorative. Some of it is floral. Some of it at Kodan looks almost tantric. So maybe elements of tantric belief, but on these ones not. But just round here is where we have, in this stretch, this is where we found the medieval temple, and the medieval temple is built on top of earlier structures. So this place is very important in terms of sanctity. And next year, if we have funds, we are going to do some of the conservation because there is a big walled enclosure here. So as ever, we Japanese funds and trusts for UNESCO support some work. Some of the work they support, some sadly they
So
cannot.
this is the exact design.
This is the design from about 1800. This is the exact design. So when we did stabilization, we followed the exact design. So it will be eventually destroyed by the tree, but at least it's partly stabilized.
And I remember that in July that I came here, I saw that behind was a barricade and there's some excavation done down there.
Yes, that's when we were here. Yes,
What is
yes.
your farm?
So actually, all of this area up to the tree is the temple below us. So it measures about 30 meters by about 20 meters. It's huge. It's a big temple, and that's the temple compound wall. Inside is largely open courtyard, and then there are 3 what look like shrines. So what we want to do, they are very low below the surface. Problem is here with monsoon, everything fills up with water. So we rebury to protect, but we will put the walls back in, conserve the walls, and also conserve the locations of where the shrines were. So the history of the site can be helped. And as you can see, we're on the top of a mound, and that mound is because there is a temple here. So next we will go to the palace area.
Okay. Nhắm nhắm nhau Huệ Cung là.
And we've been here for 1 month, and then we are coming back in February for 2 months.
For 2 months.
Yes.
So that means you are leaving soon?
We came in October, so we are leaving. I am leaving tomorrow. So this is why we are very lucky.
Yeah, we are so lucky. Monday was telling us, we must take this opportunity because you are around here, that you can show us around.
Good. Now, I think this is safe to walk.
Yes.
And it's interesting, numbers of pilgrims are increasing. So when I first worked here 20 years ago, there were about 3,000 visitors every year. Now the number is about 40,000, 45,000. So numbers are increasing.
Because the awareness raised up.
Myanmar, Vietnam, and also Thailand.
Thailand, yeah? Those
So those countries, it tends to be mainly them. And one of the challenges is these are all very new findings. And so this is why we did the exhibition in Taiwan. So the exhibition we did in Taiwan was at Soguanshan Buddha Museum. So it was open for 3 months. We had 1 million visitors. So it was very exciting. And we had all of the exhibition and also a book, and it was all in both English language, Nepali, but also in Chinese as well. Yes. So
In Taiwan, there's a lot of Buddhism. People
yes.
here. And this Tzu Foundation, our origin is also from Taiwan.
Well, we also, Lumbini Development Trust and Vice Chairman, arranged a temporary exhibition in Schwedigen Pagoda in Yangon.
Yangon.
So now this is very exciting. So
This thing it will be better.
thank you. So this was the most exciting discovery. So in the geophysics, we picked up at the centre of the city this square measuring about 100 metres and 100 metres. So this leads to the crossroads. So this is the geophysics as we picked it up. We picked up what we thought might be a gate. Blue is the road, there is the crossroads. We had a wall along there. So when we started excavating, this is a photo of the excavation. You can see we picked up the wall, and the wall is about 1 metre wide, and then this huge gateway. So this is the main gateway, the main entrance to the palatial area. So the wall runs 50 metres this way, it runs 50 metres this way, and this is the main entrance. So if you are visiting, you come on this road from the main street, and you come into this forecourt. So this is where you come into the forecourt. And here there is a gate tower. So you can see it. Well, it is. And when we excavated here, we found the old place where the posts for the gate were. So there were bricks here that you could see were placed for a gate, and on the other side, so you have to imagine there is a timber gate with two doors. So this is the entrance to the palatial compound. Inside, all of the buildings are built in brick. All of them have brick floors. Outside, the floors are mud. Outside, the walls are mud. Inside, the walls are high, and high brick walls. Also, inside, we've found many more coins and material like that, and also some carved stone. There's one beautiful part of an alms bowl with an elephant, but the elephant, it's broken near the trunk, so you cannot tell how many tusks, because of course if you had 6 tusks it would be the auspicious creature. Now the Chinese pilgrims, they describe visiting the ruins of the palace. So you have to imagine that in about 500 and 700 of the common AD, common era, these were ruined palace walls. On top of them, they recorded vihars, sangaramas. So what we have here is actually one of those buildings. So after the city palace was abandoned, we had this building built, and it's a very beautiful little building.
That means this city was built after the...
After the palace was abandoned,
after the
then
palace.
this was built.
100 AD?
So this
1000 AD.
this building is Kushana. So dates to about second century AD. This, and you can see this is the old city wall, palace wall, and this is built on top. So in the ruins of the old palace, they build this. Again, you have a veranda running round, and then you have a series of rooms. These are all cells. When we excavated here, we recovered lots of pieces of pottery, which belong to alms bowls. So this, we believe, actually is a monastery. We're currently working just over there, behind the prayer flags, on another building, which seems to be very similar. Again, it's a monastery. However, this year we have picked up what looks like we would call an apsidal shrine. So one of the very, very common designs. No, over there. Do you see under the red over there? So we've picked up some very, very fascinating buildings. One of which is a square. We can go, but we can.
Yeah, we can.
I can show you. I can show you.
So the rooms are very small.
So the rooms are very small, and this is typical plan of a monastery. As you can see, this is salt because the water has nitrates in solution. So during evaporation, they evaporate the sides of the brick break. So we put this because this is the sacrifice. People can come, they can see what it looks like, but actually we are preserving for the future.
Whatever is below,
Yes. Now I'll show you the trench we have.
So this is the one that we have excavated.
Excavation, yeah,
So this
excavation
is
is going
one
on.
we've actually excavated this year.
Oh,
So it's quite complex. You have at the bottom, you have the
pond?
wall, you have the pond in there,
Pond in there.
and then at the bottom of the plastic you have the old wall of the palace area. And then in here, I'm afraid if
This
you,
is the brick.
I'll show you some brick.
Okay.
If I will go in, but
Yeah, we'll stay here.
we'll
We'll stay here
stay
because
here.
we'll step
Don't
in.
worry. Because you know where to step.
yes, yes, and there are some holes.
他要给我们看，他叫我们写下去。啊，
wow, wonderful. Oh,
These are the ancient bridge.
yeah, ancient,
Ancient
ancient.
bricks, extremely
Oh, yeah.
well preserved.
Wow.
Wow.
And so this is square.
Mm.
So this seems to be what we're at the moment thinking is a stupa.
Oh, it's a stupa.
So we think you remember at Lumbini there are many square stupas.
Yeah.
So we're beginning to think this is in the middle of a courtyard. You have cells down there, small cells along here, small cells along there. In the center of the courtyard, actually you have this building. So at the moment, we're just about to stop the excavation, and then if we are able to, we will restart the excavation
Next year, February.
next year. So we find it, you can predict something, but this will be really exciting because in the courtyard we also have other buildings. So we haven't excavated them this year, but what we believe is we have some very, very significant buildings. And when the Chinese pilgrims came, they recorded in the ruins of the palace, they recorded that there were sangramas, viharas, many viharas. So we have one over here, and also then we have one here. And actually within the vihara, we also have evidence of what looks like a stupa. So we have not published it yet because we're still working on it, but it's really very exciting.
So this is the ancient brick also?
So that is also ancient brick. So these are some of the brick walls coming out from the individual cells. So it's very exciting, and also if you think, if we can raise the funds, we will also do conservation, so that when pilgrims come, they don't go there. They actually come to this part. So part of it is how we present to the public, so they are not misled, but actually they can understand what is happening. Shall we go to the eastern gate?
Yes, this is what. Yes.
We are looking forward to.
But it's
Buddha leave the palace from the
and also you can see the eastern gate. So we also worked at Lumbini. Inside my baby temple.
Oh, inside my
So for 3 years we excavated inside my baby temple and found below the Emperor Soka's temple there is an earlier temple. An earlier temple, and below that, dating to 600 BC, is an even earlier temple.
600 BC.
Director General of Department of Archaeology in Nepal. So he's a veteran authority on Nepalese archaeology. So both experts, they are the leading team here.
And we are just celebrating our 25th anniversary of working together.
Oh,
Yeah, civil anniversary. Dikshuni Guruma हुनुहुन्छ गुरुमाको शिष्यहरू अनि सूची भन्ने संस्थाबाट लुम्बिनीको गाउँ क्षेत्रहरूमा धेरै काम गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ नेपाल सरकारले अनुमति दियो भने हामी लुम्बिनी कपिलवस्तुलाई पनि केही गर्न खोज्दैछौँ ठुलो कामहरू त्यही भएर
Could Jagger talk to Dr. Chris? Yes, maybe Dr. Chris. So these are some of my colleagues from Department of Archaeology, Government of Nepal, Lumbini Development Trust, and also from my university, Durham University. So this is Dr. Eric in Wellington.
Hello.
Dr. Eric.
And that is Dr. Chris in the Funny Hat.
Funny hat.
This is Mr. Rajan from Lumbini Development Trust here. And this is Mr. Om from Department of Archaeology. So this trench
नमस्ते चिन्नु भयो मलाई
So we have
त्यो टिपसँगै काम गरेको थिएँ उता बाहिरवालामा बनाएको थिएँ हजुरसँग थिएँ
the bottom of the ancient moat has lots of water. So the ancient city was very well fortified, but this is also probably to help against flooding as well.
This is ecology.
So you have the fills of the pit, and Dr. Eric is going to be taking samples for dating. So it means we can date the speed of sedimentation, and also we can see, is the landscape inhabited at that time, or is it an empty landscape? And what he does is
Sedimentary districts. I under this,
See how
the tube in the section, and then in the lab I analyze the sediment.
and then we will get dates.
Yes.
Because it dates the soil. So
That's the last time the soil has seen life.
So this is why using the scientific approach, the geophysics, also the scientific dating, means that we are able to give very accurate ideas. One of the challenges we have is this is a modern road, a modern wall, and you can see the moat actually goes far beyond. So we're trying to talk with the authorities to move the road so that actually when visitors come, they should be able to see the moat opened up. So then they get a full experience of what the city was like. And this, you can see, is a huge city. It's beautifully engineered and very well preserved. So we're hoping that it will be put forward for UNESCO World Heritage status within 3 years is the hope. But the challenge is there is lots of research to do.
All the best.
Thank you.
Go for it.
So shall we go?
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly, the gate is not here.
Yes. So I'll explain. Should I wait till everyone knows?
Yes.
So yes, this is actually the back of the gate.
Oh, this is the back.
So this year is new. So we've just done geophysical survey. We did that earlier in the year, and we picked up 3 walls. So you can see one wall there, one wall there, one wall is here. So actually, this is the entrance complex. And the problem is, this modern road is on top of it. So now, this year, we begin to understand that the eastern gate is a huge complex. You will have to be very careful.
That means that layer of brick also.
So this is probably 2nd, 3rd century of the Common Era. This is the main entrance. So in the later history of the building, this is the main entrance. And this is only a fraction of the gate complex. So you have the moat running here, but actually this is a causeway across the moat. So they've built walls at either side, one wall there, one wall here. You can see the bricks. And then in between they put pavement. So if we...
Can we go in?
yes, you can. Please come in. This is all ancient pavement. Oh. You look, it's beautifully, it's almost like cobble floor.
Yeah.
So what you have, so this is the ancient pavement going into the city. So you have, this is the back side of the gate. This is the entrance, it's a big brick square. Then you come on this narrow, almost like a causeway, and you enter into the city. So this is all new this year. You can see the brickwork is here. So it's giving us an idea of how did people in ancient times come? How did they visit the site? And actually, this is the main entrance. Most pilgrims, of course, come in Westgate, and then they come to the east, because this is the point of departure. But actually, for the city, this was the main gate. This is the biggest street, and then you have to imagine no road cutting along here. So you have a large moat here, a large moat there, and then here you have brick walls, and in the middle of the brick walls you have a causeway. And in the late period, the causeway is beautifully covered in bricks. And this is the entrance. And do you see that mound in the distance? Oh, yeah. Now you must know what this is. Yeah. This is Kantaka Stupa. So this is the stupa where the Buddha left his royal regalia, where he left his horse Kantaka, and this is the stupa. Now it looks a little lonely mound, and no one visits it. So what we now know is actually there is a huge monastery under the ground. So using geophysical survey, we have picked up a monastery measuring something like 200 meters long by about 150 meters wide. It's huge. It's the biggest monastery in this region. It has the main stupa, but then it also has viharas. It has ponds with brick walls. And also in one of the viharas, when we excavated to date it 3 years ago, we found a pot full of silver coins dating to the period of Asoka's grandfather. So dating to some of the coins are Chandragupta Maurya. And Chandragupta Maurya's coins are beautiful because they have triple arched hill, which is 3 stupas, but a peacock on the top. Because Maurya, the Mauryans, Maurya means peacock in some beautiful coinage. So in February we will start working on one of the monasteries, because at the moment most visitors do not go there. So they look at it, they don't go. So we believe that once we start excavating some of the monastic buildings and start doing conservation, then people will come, and then they will be able to visit.
Great.
So, any question?
Buddha left the temple.
Well, and that is the challenge. If you think about the photograph,
Utkhanaन Bata. These are from excavation.
I know. No, and it's understandable. And in a way, we want to try to produce guidebooks.
Yes.
Also, there is a little museum that we want to try to develop. So that is the city. I'm afraid I have one card. Who should be custodian of my card? So this is my university, Durham, but also I'm a UNESCO professor. So when I'm here, I am here on behalf of both Durham and also UNESCO. Yes, and my university actually it has a castle. And the castle is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So partly that is why we have this very strong connection with UNESCO, but also that is why our commitment is to support other UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Wow.
Thank you very much,
And
Prof.
not at all. It was my. I love talking about the sites, and also if your visit actually means more people understand more about the city, that is key, because to understand the environment in which Buddhism emerged is so important. And it is a real landscape. It has real buildings. It's not a fantasy, it's grounded in reality. And also, so I've often read about the landscape, some of which has changed very little. Rice farming, growing lentils, and it's also possible to protect it and preserve it before development sweeps everything away, because the airport at Byron will bring in millions of pilgrims. Development is needed for them. If we can try quickly to protect the sites associated with the life of the Buddha, then there's a chance that actually that experience can be preserved, not lost.
Truly agree. Yes. This is something that we also can spread this news to our peoples, various countries.
Of course.
I think this is very exciting to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.